Okay, welcome to our first Throwback Thursday of Season 8, where it's the same thing we do at all of our Throwback Thursdays on the GMB YouTube channel. We address Throwback Thursday and we address it with some common sense. We look back at all of our stories and we address some common sense. That leads us to our first issue. You may remember back in Season 3, September 2019, we focused in on school pep rallies. Not just all the cheerleaders, I focused in basically on why kids choose not to go to the pep rally, not go to the cafeteria, instead just get in their cars and go home. When I was growing up, when I was in school, that's exactly what happened. A lot of kids didn't want to go to the pep rally or the cafeterias, just got in their cars and went home, which was against school rules. And mind you, I didn't go to pep rallies, I just sat in the cafeteria until the school bell rang. So I heard the announcements, you don't want to go to the pep rally, you go sit in the cafeteria. You don't go home, you sit in the cafeteria till school ends. Half the time because nowadays people have their cars and they just like ditch and just go home. But it's also great that we showed you. We haven't shown it to you, let's take a look.
You wild tulips asked me to do a rant on pep rallies. It's been a while since I've been to a pep rally, but point number one is, come on, let's be serious. It's a place for all the horny guys to go and stare at the girls in their cheerleading outfits. Hey look, Megan's got the nicest ass. The girls for some reason seem to be so spirited. Like, you're gonna graduate and leave the school. I don't know how much school pride you can have. As if they helped build it brick by brick. And their choices of music are awful. It's always like whatever is hip and popular on the radio, and you have to sit through it like this, looking like some stupid sheep. It's a place where everyone just sits down as friends and complains about school. Which realistically, I don't even know why people would complain while they're going to school. Like in these pep rallies, they'll sit down and be like, oh, my tits are sore, my classes are hard. You have starving African kids running from like 3 cheetahs with no legs trying to get food, and you're over here complaining about like, oh, how your teacher had attitude today or something. Like at one point they're like this.
Sorry about that, folks.
This. Oh my god, Lindsay, like our school is the best. And then the next minute they're like this. Oh my gosh, I don't want to be here. Like, I hate this place already. I don't know about you, but I never found the dances at these pep rallies so amazing. As if I'm watching Cirque du Soleil. It's your basic, like, our school rocks, the other teams suck. But one of the reasons why I won't complain fully about pep rallies because it gets you out of class. Come on, guys. Who doesn't want to have an excuse to just get out of class? Any change of scenery from, okay, guys, follow the notes on the book, is good for me. Everyone sits accordingly in these pep rallies. Like the jocks are all together, the douchebags are all together, the popular girls are all together, the chess club are all together, all the little pawns. And the fat kids are all together. And I always hated how they crammed us through the halls where you're walking behind like 5 other hippos. And then sometimes you have teachers, I don't know what they're talking about, they're on the mic, they're on the floor like, okay class. Today's, most valuable cheerleader is Ashley Firmrack because, her tits are the firmest. She's talking about God knows what in a place that echoes where you can't even understand her. Like, how much school pride can you have? People that built multi-million-dollar companies don't have that much pride. I literally sit there like this, making jokes with my friends until we're out of there. That's the most you could do. But it's funny because I think once like a certain group of girls get together in pep rallies, like there's certain friends that don't have class together, but then pep rallies they can finally sit down together and then complain about like how Jake dumped her, all this stupid shit. And I'm forced to sit there and hear this side conversation where I can't really help it. They're talking right next to me and I'm forced to listen to this crap. They're complaining and literally crying about the smallest things. But people in frickin' Siberia have to worry about their lungs freezing if they breathe in too deep. You have kids running in war zones, dodging bullets just to make it to fetch the water. And these spoiled teens complain about how their mom took off $5 of their $1,000 weekly allowance. Looks like you're gonna be uglier because that means less money for you to spend at the makeup store. Thanks guys so much for watching. Request me more rants and be doing more rants. We're gonna, yep, I'll see you.
That's how it happens. When I was in school, this are choices. You go to the pep rally or you go to the cafeteria. Half the time, I did not go to the cafeteria. I would sit in the classroom and be on the computer. That's what it was for me. It's like, damn boy, you're the lucky one. Yeah, I was. You know, we had in Five Bluff, we have a special education program. So bottom line here is this: the next pep rally that happens, you either go there or you go straight to the cafeteria. Here, there, or there. You don't go home, otherwise this one actually could be happening. That's the whole key. Throughout the next half hour, we're going to be focusing on E. coli, meaning food that can make, the stuff that can make you, bacteria that can make you sick. Focusing on Wednesday, and now we're going to recap what we talked about. Please stay with us. If you watched yesterday's episode, we focused in, we took a second look into E. coli. It was because of an incident. It was because it was because of E. coli happening in McDonald's. Basically, the quarter pounder. 10 states were affected. 1 person has died, and now the new lawsuit is pouring in. We'll have delays for you to come up on Friday. But we're throwing it back to E. coli because, not just because of what we talked about, but the whole reasoning why is because no one knows how to cook food. So with that in mind, how can you protect yourself from E. coli? We have 3 stories. First, the meat, then the veggies, and then the drinks. So, first, here's all Diaz.
Each time you take a bite of a hamburger, are you playing Russian roulette?
How would you like it cooked?
Medium rare.
Well done.
Rare. If you're still eating your burgers rare or medium, or even medium well, what you don't know could kill you. This dire warning is coming now not from a consumer group, but from the federal government.
The message needs to be very strongly conveyed to consumers that the days when one could eat medium rare or rare hamburgers are over.
The Agriculture Department's Dr. Glenn Morris says contaminated ground beef is now a major problem. E. coli 0157H7, the deadly bacteria first discovered in hamburger in 1982, is spreading. The bacteria is found in the intestines and feces of some cattle. During slaughtering, it sometimes accidentally transfers onto the meat. From there, it can end up being ground into the hamburger you or your children eat.
It tends to strike particularly children as well as the elderly. And it also can strike essentially without warning. You can have a child who eats an undercooked hamburger and who can be dead within a matter of days.
This is not just another food scare story. The government says we're in the midst of an E. coli epidemic, and the meat industry agrees it's a serious problem. There are things consumers can do to protect themselves, but critics say both the industry and government have done a poor job of getting us that information. In the meantime, E. coli is killing people, as many as 500 a year, according to official estimates.
Kind of blows you away. My son died because he ate a hamburger. It just, very hard to comprehend that simply a couple bites of a hamburger killed him.
It happened so quickly, Jan Sowerby still can't believe it. Scotty was a healthy, smiling 3-year-old. Then Jan says he ate a hamburger on a camping trip, and a week later was rushed to the hospital with bloody diarrhea. There are no antibiotics for E. coli. Kidney dialysis can help, but in Scotty's case it failed. And after a week of torturous pain, he died.
I was holding him, And he was laying on the cot, and he kept trying to say something to me, and I couldn't understand him. His teeth were just gritted so hard. He was in so much pain, he could not open his mouth to talk. He said to me, "Mommy, please hug me." And that was actually the last words that my son ever spoke to me.
Scotty's mother and grandmother have joined STOP, an organization of victims' families.
Thank you.
Jan is a pharmacist in Michigan and has made it her mission to warn others about this new strain of E. coli, which she calls a serial killer.
It's out there, and it is killing victims, and it's an evil, evil, evil thing. It tears these kids apart, and people need to know that, yes, it is happening. It's not just one incident. It's not just my son. It's not just the Jack in the Box.
You may remember the E. coli outbreak at Jack in the Box restaurants 3 years ago. 4 children died. What you probably don't know is that there have been dozens of outbreaks since then, and many others who've died apparently from eating contaminated ground beef. Victims like 6-year-old Alex Donnelly of Chicago, 13-year-old Eric Mueller, and 88-year-old Florence Metz of California, 69-year-old Virginia Watt, and 3-year-old Kevin Scott from Washington State.
Public health officials confirmed there is a second victim now of the potentially deadly H7 E. coli bacteria.
The problem has become so widespread that this year, all 50 states have reported cases of E. coli poisoning. In Georgia and Tennessee, 7 people got sick, including this young boy. Authorities say they all ate hamburgers at Central Park drive-through restaurants. In New York, meat bought at this supermarket chain tested positive for E. coli, officials say, and 11 people were infected. The store says it got the bad meat from a distributor. And in Massachusetts, contaminated ground beef at a county fair apparently led to this young girl and 10 others being stricken.
All the data we have coming in suggests that it is a major problem. It is a problem that clearly has increased significantly over the past decade, from 0 up to where we're talking 20,000 cases a year.
20,000 cases, 500 deaths, an epidemic?
An epidemic.
You would call it one.
I think it is, yes.
And in a frightening development, this same deadly strain of E. coli has turned up in salami, and scientists believe may have spread from cow manure to some fruits and vegetables, and even water. Still, ground beef is the single biggest source of this E. coli. Why hamburger and not other cuts of meat? Well, with steaks and roasts, any E. coli is on the surface and is easily killed during cooking. But when meat is ground up, the bacteria on the surface can get mixed into the middle of the hamburger, where it's much harder to cook out. E. coli is not in every hamburger, but it could be in any hamburger.
Probably 1 out of 1,000 hamburger samples contains this organism. You know, when you stop and think how many hamburgers you eat, that starts adding up.
Americans eat more than 20 billion hamburgers a year, so millions of raw burgers may be contaminated. Yet many people don't know that. The meat industry says it's trying to get the word out.
The way that the meat industry has actually reacted, I think, has been pretty responsive.
American Meat Institute scientist Janet Collins-Williams points to these brochures they've sent to supermarkets and the safe handling labels now required on all meat packages.
I think that by having the government mandate a label that says this is the proper care for a product and having the industry support it with materials in the grocery stores and at food service, I think is about the best we can do.
But is this label good enough? It certainly doesn't grab your attention. The print is so small, many consumers have never read it. And the label doesn't say anything about E. coli in ground beef. Instead, it gives generic advice for handling all meat and poultry. It says keep it refrigerated and separate from other foods, and cook thoroughly. But how do you know when a hamburger is thoroughly cooked? The label doesn't say, and many people don't know. How were you judging whether the burgers were done?
I was going basically by the color of the outside of the burger in the medium.
Rob Gordiak and his sister Lisa Grosch thought the hamburgers were cooked well enough at a family barbecue in June. But a week later, Lisa's 3-year-old son Jason ended up in the hospital with bloody diarrhea. In this case, emergency kidney dialysis saved his life. but his family wishes they'd known how to make sure a hamburger is safe.
We're looking for 155 degrees to kill the E. coli bacteria.
Experts like Brian Halloran of Cornell University say if the middle of the hamburger reaches 155 degrees Fahrenheit, the E. coli will be destroyed. But most people don't carry around a meat thermometer, so you should look for two things. First, there should be no pink left inside the burger. Second, if the meat's juices are at all red, like this, the burger is not done. Wait until the juices run clear. But none of this information is on the safe handling label.
Why not be more precise on the label and say, cook until the juices run clear, or there's no pink left, or something like that? That's clearly an option.
Until the juices run clear, I think it's wonderful.
But it's not on there. Do you think that should be on there?
I think it could be on there.
And the label doesn't say what even the meat industry admits. There's only one safe way to eat a hamburger.
Well done.
Well done. Not medium well.
Well done.
And it's not just the hamburger itself you have to watch out for. It's everything the meat touches.
So even the spatula could carry the E. coli after having touched the raw hamburger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Food safety experts like Cornell's Bonnie Richmond say to avoid cross-contamination, wash your hands and any utensils, and never put other foods where raw hamburgers been. Just 4 months ago, 2-year-old Paige Hall from Ohio died, apparently after she ate a hot dog that had been contaminated by raw hamburger on the same plate. Last week, her father, who helped prepare that hot dog, was apparently so distraught he committed suicide. Not uncommon for the families of victims to feel guilty, but Jan Sowerby says the government and beef industry should be doing more to keep E. coli out of meat.
I don't expect to be told, well, if you just cook your meat, that wouldn't have happened. To me, that's blaming me, and it's not my fault that my son died from eating a hamburger. That's just not my fault, and I won't accept that.
The USDA is trying to change the antiquated meat inspection system, and the industry says it's actively looking for solutions.
The industry's spending millions of dollars on protective technologies to try to get the carcasses cleaner and the meat better than it's been.
You think there will be a time when you can guarantee that the meat is free of E. coli?
No.
Can you tell the American consumer now that meat, ground beef that is approved by the USDA, is free of E. coli? No.
So the message to you, the consumer, is simple and urgent. Undercooked ground beef can kill.
Boy, Arnold, what about the fast food restaurants now? Are they selling fewer rare burgers and more well done?
Absolutely. I don't think you can order a rare burger in a fast food restaurant. Everything is well done. They have temperature controls, and they're really on top of it now. The problem is at home, backyard barbecues.
And we still need to worry about that.
Yeah, we're in E. coli season now. Break open that burger, cut it in half before you eat it. If it's red, put it back on the grill.
Now, what's happened since you first reported on this?
Well, we're expecting any day now the USDA to announce a new inspection program for ground beef, including sampling for bacteria. They don't do that right now. And also, the processors are doing steam cleaning of the carcasses to try to kill the E. coli.
And that should help.
Yes, that is helping.
But cook them well.
Cook them well.
Thank you, Arnold.
Cook them well. It's how it is. And if you remember, we also talked about the use of a thermometer, a meat thermometer. Now, if you're afraid of using those pokey things, a solution is an infrared thermometer. Like I told you last season, an infrared thermometer is very helpful. One person commented saying that he and his friends use it and it works well. So, next time you cook your meat, use an infrared thermometer if you're afraid of getting the juice all over the pan. When we come back, it's not just E. coli in the meats, it's in our salads, the lettuce. Stay with us. Welcome back. Welcome back to the first Throwback Thursday of Give Me a Break for Season 8. We're talking about E. coli. And if you're thinking it's just in the hamburgers that we cook, it's not just that. It's also in the salads. So next time you're thinking about having a salad and you didn't rinse it out, then maybe this can happen to you. What is some important information you need to know? Here's Lynn Schur.
For most kids, this is just a routine kitchen chore. helping Mom wash the salad.
We're making lettuce. Good.
But for 5-year-old Haley Bernstein of Wilton, Connecticut, it is a matter of life and death. Back in June of 1996, Haley, then 3, and her older sister Chelsea came down with what seemed to be terrible stomach aches. After several days of bloody diarrhea and nonstop crying, their parents took them to the hospital. The doctors took a stool culture and said it was the bacteria E. coli.
My first reaction was, I'm going to lose them. Oh, you don't get over E. coli. You really don't survive that.
Why is it that the term E. coli made you so upset?
Because E. coli equals death. In my head, that's what it equaled.
That was certainly the image of E. coli when it made headlines a few years ago, turning up in hamburgers at Jack in the Box restaurants in Washington State. It caused the deaths of 4 children. Up to now, E. coli has usually been associated with meat contaminated by cow feces. What we all identified E. coli with, certainly at that period, was hamburgers. Had the girls had hamburgers?
Well, I had taken them from fast food, and so I immediately connected the two.
But was it hamburgers?
No, it wasn't, and I was shocked, beyond shocked, when we found out what it was.
What it was lettuce, an innocent-looking mix of baby greens called mesclun salad, found in nearly every fashionable grocery store. And what had poisoned it was the same bacteria found in the hamburgers, E. coli. Haley's sister Chelsea came down with a mild set of symptoms and went home the same day. But Haley developed the worst possible reaction, a condition called hemolytic uremic syndrome. Her kidneys simply shut down. She was put on a ventilator, transfused, fed through a tube, came down with pneumonia, lung disease, and congestive heart failure. After 2 terrifying months in the hospital, the nightmare got unimaginably worse.
She had a bleeding on the left side of her head that was the size of a tennis ball. That was,
Required brain surgery.
6 hours worth of surgery.
Brain surgery?
Yeah. You're talking a perfectly healthy, normal, great kid who just ate some lettuce.
The brain surgery left Haley's eyesight permanently damaged. She became diabetic, and there were times when her parents thought she would die. But finally, miraculously, the day came when she was discharged. What was the worst moment for you while all this was going on?
I think the most frightening time was the day they came in and said that we could take her home. That was the most frightening day for me.
Why?
Sorry.
You've been through 14 and a half weeks of fear and a little hope and then more fear, and now you got to bring her home. Why was it scary?
Because I was responsible for her. She was so sick. And we came home, she was on 10 or 11 medications. It took us 2.5 hours to get the medications.
Twice a day.
Twice a day.
Haley and her sister were not alone. Investigators say in all, 61 people in Connecticut and Illinois got sick from the same batch of lettuce. Tammy Ardema from St. Charles, Illinois, suffered for days before she drove herself to the emergency room.
The pain was horrible. They pumped me with antibiotics, very strong ones, and I was there for about 4 hours.
Tammy was lucky. Adults just get sick. For children, the elderly, and people with compromised immune systems, it is potentially lethal. How did lettuce become so dangerous? Investigators say it's just a matter of connecting the dots at this small farm in the heart of California lettuce country. They say the cows grazed back over there, right next to where the lettuce was washed, which is right back in here. So it's entirely possible that bits of cow feces containing the bacteria were tracked into the shed or seeped into the water supply. An FDA inspector at this makeshift lettuce grower, Fancy Cut Farms, found a list of egregious violations. Employees used bare hands. The lettuce was transported in dirty, reused boxes. And well water next to the cattle was not treated, filtered, or chlorinated. Just before the outbreak, Fancy Cut's filter system got clogged, and government inspectors say these workers may have been triple washing the lettuce with dirty water. We invited Lori Durand, a food safety activist, to visit Fancy Cut Farms with us. Although shut down since January and ravaged by a local flood, it still bore the telltale remnants of a deficient packing plant. Lori, when you look at this operation, what do you see?
Well, in a perfect situation, I think what you want is processing that looks like your kitchen. You don't want a processing area that looks like a shed. You want a processing area that has enclosed, keep the animals, birds, insects out.
In other words, because it's so open, anything could walk in there.
Yes, grow in there, grow on the ceilings, grow on the walls. Yes, exactly.
Give me a gut reaction to what you see as you stand here.
Revolting.
Revolting. The owner of Fancy Cut Farms, Robert Chavez, has denied he was to blame for the outbreak, but he refused to speak with 2020. And according to FDA documents, he was uncooperative with the agency during an inspection because he was too busy and repeatedly didn't return the inspector's calls. What really upsets food safety activists like Durand is that the conditions at Fancy Cut are not unique. From what you know, Lori, is this what was a farm here? Is this unusual, or is this something that happens in other places too?
Well, it's my understanding that in that farm, they're packing in an animal facility with manure in piles around where they're packing.
We took a look at the neighboring farm, which was recently used to pack broccoli and persimmons. And what we found didn't look like any kitchen where we would eat.
I believe this used to be a cow shed, because this is the place where a cow would normally put its head to be fed on the other side of this particular structure.
So these would be the troughs, the feeding troughs over here.
I believe so.
Okay.
And in this detritus, which I reluctant to touch with my hand, represents cow manure and feces otherwise from animals.
These kinds of conditions have led to 6 known cases of E. coli contamination in lettuce in the past few years. There were 2 cases from alfalfa sprouts just last June. And in July of 1996 in Japan, E. coli in radish sprouts put thousands of people in the hospital, them school children. It's not just salad fixings. Other foods that are eaten raw can also transmit the bacteria. In 1996, after drinking unpasteurized Odwalla apple juice, 70 people, mostly children, were infected with E. coli, including Lori Durand's daughter, Annie.
It was absolutely devastating because, first of all, you try to protect your child from absolutely everything horrible that could happen. And then you find that by giving them something that you think is healthy, you've actually possibly killed them.
Did it ever occur to you that apple juice could do this to your daughter?
Oh, never. I mean, I would have never thought that there were bacteria that were as life-threatening as E. coli 01577. And 20 years ago when I took biology, this organism wasn't identified. People didn't know about it.
While E. coli has been around for millennia, this virulent new mutation called 0157H7 was only discovered in the early 1980s. Dr. Ross Davidson is a microbiologist at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. After 2 E. coli outbreaks from lettuce in Canada last year, he decided to investigate. Using blue dye to simulate E. coli tainted water, he showed us how easily it can permeate an entire head of lettuce.
Lettuce is very porous. It's composed almost entirely of water, so there's no barrier to stop E. coli from getting access to the inside. And that's why it's important to thoroughly wash both the outside and the inside leaves.
Later, he sprayed the lettuce with bacteria and performed an experiment to demonstrate whether washing would completely eliminate the germs.
The first plate here shows you how much E. coli bacteria you might expect to find on the outer leaves prior to washing.
Then he showed us how much E. coli is left, even after a thorough washing. 2 cells in this case.
You can't completely eliminate the risk, but you can certainly reduce it.
Scientists say it can take as few as 1 to 10 cells of this new strain of E. coli to make you sick. Knowing what this researcher has done, the scientist in Toronto, does that put even more pressure on the FDA as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely. It cannot get to our homes, and we cannot be expected to eliminate a biohazard from our kitchen.
The FDA is responsible for making sure we don't have to. But Joe Levitt, who runs the agency's Center for Food Safety, says scientists are still trying to figure out how. There already exist specific mandatory guidelines, rules for meat, for milk, for seafood. Why not for produce, something you eat raw?
Right now, what we feel is with fresh fruits and vegetables, the amount of information we have is appropriate for guidance. What we're lacking is having a good, clear sense of exactly what steps are going to give the level of assurance that a mandatory program we would want to achieve.
In other words, on lettuce farms like this, farmers should follow what the FDA says, but they don't have to. There is a way to protect our food supply, and it's not nearly as complicated as you might think. It doesn't require fancy machines or high technology or even very much money at all. Here at McAfee Apple Gardens in Fresno, California, Mark McAfee has helped revive the reputation of Odwalla, who made the contaminated apple juice. His orchard is a leader in safety standards, with some common sense and inexpensive ideas, like testing his water for purity, enforcing strict hand-washing rules by having wash stations nearby, plus this ingenious device.
Just a ladder, right?
Every farm has a picking ladder.
This is a standard picking ladder used in the harvest of fruit in the central San Joaquin Valley.
Okay, so what's the big deal about your version of this ladder?
We don't touch the orange space. When you touch the orange space, you got to go wash your hands.
Oops. But I'm not picking apples, so
That's
it's okay, right?
We modified these ladders so that you don't have to touch where the bacteria is, where your feet come in contact with this device at any time during the day.
So in other words, if you happen to have tracked some animal feces or whatever, and you step on this, you would get it in your
You
hands.
get it on your hand and on the fruit all day long.
But McAfee says the problem is, he's one of the only ones taking these steps. You see people using methods not as stringent as the methods you're using, and not as common sense. Tell me what you feel in your gut.
They just don't know. I've sat in rooms where farmers say, you know, we've done this for 50 years this way. And I'm not going to call them ignorant. These are very bright, very hardworking people. But emerging pathogens are not the same guys in humans. And with that thought in mind, we have to evolve in our thought process.
Despite McAfee's assessment, our nation's fresh produce has been overwhelmingly safe. And the big lettuce producers like Fresh Express have never been linked to an E. coli outbreak. They spend millions of dollars on safety standards. The cases we've shown you are rare. But as long as there's the potential of even one contaminated leaf of lettuce, Haley's mother Rita isn't going to be taking any chances.
I separate each leaf, I do the whole head.
When she served lettuce, it takes her a good half hour just to wash, and she hopes disinfect, the leaves. Okay, so now what?
So what I do, once they're all separated and everything, I spray them.
This is really a scientific process.
I guess for some people this is a big deal. You know, for me it's just not. I mean, it's just, I'm washing it and I want to, especially lettuce.
Haley, do you remember when you were sick?
Yeah, something was on the lettuce, it was coli.
So Haley, do you eat lettuce now?
Yeah, this is good lettuce now, and this is good water.
Good water, right?
Good water, and it's not bad water.
We really came so close to losing her so many times. E. coli 0157H7 is something that did not exist when we were younger. The world is different now, and we have to treat the food we eat differently now, too.
Now, we don't want to scare you into not eating fresh fruits and vegetables. The experts say that nearly all our food is safe. But with this new strain of E. coli out there, it's more important than ever to thoroughly wash everything you eat. You'll reduce the risk greatly.
And that means even if it comes in a package and says that it's been triple washed, you wash it. Because after what we've seen, can't be too careful.
The bottom line here is if it's pre-washed, you wash it. That's the whole key here. If it's pre-washed, then you wash it yourself. When we return, it's not just focusing on meat. We focus on the vegetables, as often the fruit. When we return, apple juice in just a moment. We're back talking about E. coli. We focused in on hamburgers, vegetables, like lettuce. Now we're going to turn into something that's right into your refrigerator. If your child drinks apple juice and had E. coli years ago from it, this is the story for you. If you drank some apple juice, you might have had some E. coli. But how is it now? Could be some few bad apples. As we first showed you yesterday and a couple seasons ago, it's all about pasteurizing juice. Here's Rob Stafford.
Twice about it. I, naively assumed that if it was on the shelf that it was safe.
It is an old-fashioned favorite, an American tradition. Millions of parents serve it to their children every day.
Apple juice. I've given all 3 of my children apple juice since they were babies. What could be safer?
But in Denver, Colorado, fresh apple juice is no longer part of 5-year-old Brian Dimmick's diet. The drink his mother always considered a health food had become a potential health threat.
He changed from a healthy kid to a really sick kid almost overnight.
3 weeks ago, Brian drank apple juice. 5 days later, he was hospitalized in critical condition. Brian's kidneys were failing.
It was real hard to believe at several points along the way that he was going to make it.
And Brian is not alone. A 16-month-old girl in Denver died Friday. As many as 53 others became ill in Colorado, California, Washington State, and British Columbia. All after drinking apple juice, all apparent victims of the dangerous E. coli bacteria, normally associated with undercooked tainted ground beef. The same kind that killed 4 children and sickened 600 people in the Pacific Northwest in 1993. So how does the same dangerous E. coli bacteria find its way into something which seems as safe and healthful as apple juice? Health officials believe some apples from an orchard like this one became contaminated with manure. And because the juice was not pasteurized, the bacteria was never killed.
E. coli 0157 is a challenge.
Dr. Rob Tokes is chief of the foodborne disease section of the Centers for Disease Control.
I don't think we know yet what the best means of preventing this sort of outbreak is. Pasteurizing juice is certainly one option, and it's a technology that's available and easy to use.
For a long time, experts believed the high level of acid in apple juice was enough to kill E. coli without pasteurization. But in 1991, the bacteria showed up in juice at a roadside stand in Massachusetts. And now, for the first time, in juice from a factory.
Foods that may have once been considered completely safe because they were too acid for bacteria to survive may, in fact, be a haven for E. coli 0157. That's one example of the surprises that E. coli 0157 has up its sleeve.
Certainly a surprise to the manufacturer of the tainted juice, which mechanically scrubs its apples. The Odwalla Company of California voluntarily pulled its apple-based products off the shelf.
We believe that we've done everything known to the industry to prevent this.
Many customers bought Odwalla's apple drinks because they are natural, not pasteurized. A process juice lovers say reduces flavor and nutrients. Even though E. coli is rarely found in juice, the Food and Drug Administration recommends that children and the elderly drink only pasteurized apple juice. The overwhelming majority of juice is pasteurized. The trouble is, it's tough to tell which brand is and which is not. As we found in this store, many of the brands simply don't say. But experts tell us if the juice is not pasteurized, it should not be here on the shelf, but in the refrigerated section of the store. If you're not sure, ask your grocer. Health officials also suggest these tips to reduce your risk of infection. If you buy unpasteurized juice, boil it for 30 seconds. Always wash fresh fruits and vegetables. Make sure ground beef is cooked thoroughly till the inside is brown and the juices run clear. And your mom's advice is the best advice. Wash your hands with soap and hot water after using the bathroom and after preparing raw meat.
Brian, you take care and come back and visit us, okay?
Yes, see you on Tuesday.
Okay.
Brian Dimmick is one of the lucky ones. He came close to total kidney failure, but is expected to make a full recovery. Scientists can't say for sure how great a risk drinking unpasteurized juice poses to the public, but it's a risk the Dimmick family does not think anyone should take.
I would hate to see another child as sick as this kid was. It was just frightening.
In response to this latest E. coli scare, the Food and Drug Administration is considering a requirement to pasteurize all apple juice. Meanwhile, Odwalla executives have offered to pay all medical bills related to the outbreak.
Related to the outbreak. Now, that's it for E. coli. Before we wrap it up, let's give you a quick review. For juice, if you're buying unpasteurized juice, boil it for 30 seconds. No more
to prevent this.
No more than 30 seconds. Here's what you do. Boil unpasteurized juice. Next, wash fresh fruits and vegetables. That includes lettuces, including those packages that we showed you that say pre-washed. If it says pre-washed, you wash it to reduce the E. coli, to reduce all the bacteria. You won't get it involved, but you'll have 2 cells. Next, cook ground beef until it's well done, or the juices run clear. I prefer to use an infrared thermometer. And the very best advice is always, that your mom always tells us to do. Wash your hands for 20 seconds in hot water. Soap and water. Again, boil unpasteurized juice, wash fresh fruits and vegetables, cook ground beef until well done, and always wash your hands after contaminating raw meat. If you need to use gloves, then go right ahead. But that won't probably help reducing E. coli. So I hope this Throwback Thursday gets out to you. For those who want to cook, follow these steps, and maybe then you can protect you and your family. That's it for Throwback Thursday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Friday. Good night, everyone.